that too, because it's a little bit different.
I'm going to try to keep it pretty on topic of just like, because I'm planning on only going live for like 20 minutes.
No, perfect.
And I want to just I don't want to steer people a million directions. So I just want to give them kind of what they need. But I'll definitely have them. Oh, we're going live. Okay.
We're here.
We are live. Let me pull this up. Welcome, 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 everybody. The moment you have all been waiting for. He didn't recognize he was so famous in a group he's never been a part of. But I've been getting private messages of you guys looking forward to this conversation. And we're just going to do it how we always do, Q&A style and just winging it. I will also be pulling up my phone. And if you guys have any questions, please post them below. That makes for the best lives possible too. So let me pull that up on my phone right now. But yeah, I have an estate planning attorney here with us today. He has a whole slew of things he does though, but we're really going to be talking about your future and kind of the mistakes he's seen people make and how to really just move forward in your business in a smart, legal way. And so I'll just have you introduce yourself, Michael. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and who you are.
All right. So we have 45 minutes for that, right? Just kidding. Just kidding.
Right, right.
So my name is Michael, like you said, Michael Glassford. I'm an estate planning attorney, and to know me is a little bit to know what I do. I own a 2-acre hobby farm in Riverton. We call it the Staffordshire, and we are that big of a nerd. And we have Scottish Highland cow, horse, alpacas, goats, chickens, sheep, and cats. And I'm allergic to all of them. And the reason that that's relevant is because I preach it's your life, it's your story, make it a good one. And so I really do believe that the more unique and the more that you can embrace your unique, the more successful you'll be in life. And so I do like to practice what I preach, and then nail it down into systems, into legal systems and processes that will allow you to have that confidence to live that best life. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Was there a reason you got into what you got into, or do you have a kind of a story behind that?
Estate planning in specific.
Yeah, any of it.
So young attorney. Actually, I'm in my last year of law school. That's the year they're supposed to bore you to death. And I actually moved 4 hours away from my law school to start practicing under state statutes. You can practice under other attorneys, and so I moved away from the law school. I was going back one day a week to meet my quota, whatever, for the law school to continue their accreditation, and because I got the 90 credits in 2.5 years or in 2 years, but they made me come back an extra little semester there. And we bought a 100-year-old house in this little town called Montgomery City, and we had just bought our first washer and dryer, 45 minutes away from the house because you have to drive to the city, like real city folk. And coming home from that, we got hit in a huge rainstorm. Those microburst Midwest storms that it's just downpouring on you. It's like a cartoon. If you put your arm out, then it's like dry out there, but just downpouring on you. And it sent us into a spin. And that's my last memory. The next memory is me waking up in a hospital, not knowing if my wife or my 9-month-old son were alive, and just thinking, I'm not ready for this, right? And that fear just on your chest, and how palpable that was, and that kind of became, long story short, they were fine. Lots of miracles happened that day, but that became the premise of my law practice. And I wanted to make sure that other families are ready for something like that, because you just don't know. Like last year taught us, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Um, and you can't know, but you can be prepared. And so that really, in those days, my firm was much more broad. I did more things, but that's the basis of everything I do, and that's really why estate planning has always been my passion and my love, to make sure that if that happens to you, you don't have to feel the way I did, because I had nothing in place.
And I think people, especially women, they kind of put it off because they think it's not their responsibility, right? Like it's not their job. It's not, they'll, like we talked about a little bit before, they'll get to it when they get to it, right? And for me, I've just been born with massive anxiety around like taxes and legalities and XYZ. So it's always been like, I do a lot of things out of fear, right? Of like, well, if my husband dies, then what? Or if I die, like who are my kids going to? And all these different things. But I put it off until probably this year. And I still have a lot of work to do because I got it done and now I don't even know what to do with it. Right. So it's like, I think that's why it's really important to find someone like you that can consult you and say, this is now what you need to do with it. Right. Not like, oh, you just paid a crap ton of money for a book that's like this, and now what do I actually do with it? And I think that's the biggest thing I want a lot of you to, if you have questions, please ask, because I even don't know a lot, but I'm a big believer in having your ducks in a row for things. But I'm also a big believer, and I'm here to learn and get educated on what do we need to know, and what are some of the top things that you feel kind of other attorneys aren't doing to help people be prepared, right? It's like, I'll take your money, I'll make the thing, but now what, right? Is it even good, right? I don't know, it's still sitting in a box over there.
Well, you're not alone. The statistic is that only 40% of Americans have any kind of planning in place. So we all have this, oh, I'll put it off, right? And it's, that whole important and urgent quadrant that we all know it's important, but it's important tomorrow. We'll take care of it tomorrow. Unless you've had that experience, unless you've seen a family member go through probate, unless you've felt that pain, the urgency just really isn't there. And so it's a very commonplace. And some of the biggest reasons why I see people putting it off is, one, well, it's just too much money. Okay. Two, I don't have enough stuff to plan. Three, it's about death. I don't want to talk about death. And so I'm a real big believer in just busting barriers and just taking away all the excuses, because those are valid, but in the end, they won't do you anything. They won't do any good. So I make my services super affordable, slash the prices on that. And thank you, COVID, but we were able to streamline the process. So a $2,500 trust is now $800. If that gives you an example of what we can do for the client, because I don't spend as much time traveling and sitting in someone's home anymore, because we can do it on Zoom. And just, it's about death. No, it's not. Like I told you before we started, unless you're a Viking or a Klingon and you just want to die well, it's not our jam. We want to live well. And so, I, again, big Star Trek nerd here. And so I love using the ship's shield as a great analogy. Without that shield, the Enterprise doesn't go into space. It doesn't fight the fights. It doesn't explore. It doesn't do anything. Without that shield, they die. And your estate plan is that shield to give you the confidence to explore your own space, to go out there and to live better.
I love that. And I can guarantee you will have a hard time finding an $800, and everybody I'm sure is different, but an $800 estate plan. That's incredible. And with the value that you provide and the caring heart that you provide to make sure that you can consult people and tell them what they need and why they need, because I think, and if I'm wrong, you guys in the comments can correct me. I think, like I said, some people don't even know what an estate plan is. Can you kind of dive in a little deeper of like, what is an estate plan and why do they need that?
Absolutely. So, let's just really quick, have a little fight between wills and trusts. And, in this corner we have wills, and this corner we have a trust. And, we hear all those words and we think, oh, it's all part of the same thing. Well, a will is the golden ticket from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. You have a will and you've given that golden ticket to the government. You've guaranteed the government admission to your final party. Not like maybe please come, but guaranteed. And guess what? They get to lead the party too. So a will is good. It takes control back from the government, because if you don't have one, the government has one for you. But you're still playing their game. A trust exits the arena. It says, you know what? Thanks, but no thanks. we'd like to keep our information private. We don't need a judge to tell us what to do, to oversee, the distribution of my stuff. I don't need to pay someone else to make sure that the things I already own go to the people that I want it to go to. So yes, wills are good, trusts are better. And so, that's really watered down, but it starts the conversation on the fact that a trust is something that can own property in its name today. And so by doing that, when we pass away, there's no death transfer event. It's unneeded. It's already done. And so there's already a system in place. There's already a trustee, or I like to call it property manager, that can continue to do the job even if you can't. And we just take away all the need for court intervention, for that intrusion of privacy, and rest assured, there are people, there are companies that are literally sitting on the courthouse steps waiting for that case to be probated, to go in and buy the furniture for cheap, or to convince little Timmy that it's time to buy a Tesla with that money. So it's just, let's keep it private, let's keep it secure, let's keep it safe, and let's make sure it's going where it needs to go, and that we have the control over it. We can get into all sorts of uh, you know nitty gritty on how we can make sure that the items that we need to get to our kids will get to them, and that it will not be impactful on their life in a negative way.
Well, and what I love about it, because I think as a woman, my kids were my biggest motivation to get it done, right? I'm like, we were one of those people. We don't have a ton of things. We live in an old farmhouse. I mean, my husband has his semis and his projects, right? The things that I'm like, not important, whatever, but that's important to him. And what I loved is the aspect of how you can really what's important to you is you can decide where things are going, right? Because yeah, if I get my dad's heirloom that I don't think is important, right? But like then he can decide where that goes. And the biggest thing for me too was how money's divided out. So if we're talking money, because we're in a money group, right? For me, I have a lot of family that does money different than I do, right? I had to break through a lot of money beliefs that was implanted in my head for generations and generations. And so for me, a big thing was, how is my money divided out to my kids, and when, and what does that look like? And that was huge of, okay, I might have someone that takes care of my kids, right? But now who's actually in charge of the money, and how does that get divided out, and what does that look like? And so if you guys are wondering and thinking, because so many of you are successful, and you have money, right? And you have the things that you want, but if you really sat and asked yourself, who could I trust if I died with my money, to have the same money mindset that you've been trained to have now, of abundance thinking and investing and all of these different things? Does your family or the people that would be in charge of that measure up to your expectations? And so, and you never know, like Todd, my husband, always says, I could walk out in the street tomorrow and get hit by a bus, or be in a situation where, like, you laying in a hospital bed being like, I don't even know if my family is alive, but now what, right? And so many people, they have businesses, like you said, just waiting to prey on people that are vulnerable and not thinking, and to get the best deal, and for you to sell them like things. And at that moment, you're not worried about those things, right? But how many times have we lost things and then been like, man, I wish I wouldn't have sold my house. I would have used it for XYZ. Or man, I wish I would have done this or that. And so it's really important to meet with somebody like Michael and sit down and create the plan that you want while you have this mindset, while you have a chance, because you might not have the chance tomorrow. So I'm really glad you brought that up, because everybody has a different why. And like I said, I might still not understand things. And even that, though I have something, I'll still sit down with Michael and be like, I need you to review this now, right? Like, I don't even know, because I need to understand it more. And so I would say for anybody, and we'll put his information in the comments, book an appointment with him and just see what that looks like, because you never know what you don't know. And I think we avoid things that are confusing, and we put it on a shelf until it's too late. And you don't want it to be too late on who gets to make your decisions when you're laying in a hospital bed. You guys know I'm a hippie. Like I want someone that has the same mindset as me to make decisions, whether what treatments or treatments I don't get. So I kind of went on a tangent on that, but I am so passionate about being prepared, because when you're not and crisis hits, you have a whole slew of people coming after you, and you don't know who to trust, what to do, what to believe, and especially if you have a lot of money sitting behind you, right?
Absolutely. And that's part of the plan, the strategy is that it's already decided. I don't have, I'm going to choose my trustees carefully, but I don't have to worry that they're exactly like me, because the trust is designed to be like me. They just follow the rules and they distribute it as I've already dictated. And so, it doesn't have to be a perfect match, but we have to know how that's working. And you mentioned it a couple of times. It's on the shelf, and I've got this thing and I don't know what's going on with it. It's a really good idea to continue the relationship, whether it's the attorney that wrote it for you, or someone like me, to know what's on the shelf there. I call it the most expensive paperweight you ever bought if you don't use it. And I don't know how many times I've walked into somebody's house, they pull that off the shelf, they blow it off with the dust, they open it up, they spent like 10 grand on this thing. It's like the Cadillac of trusts, and it's completely empty. Their house isn't in it, their bank accounts aren't in it, nothing's in it, which means when they die, they're not relying on their trust, because the trust doesn't own it. It's still in their individual name. They're relying on their pour over will. Hopefully the attorney wrote a good one to get it back into the trust. But now we have to go through the probate process. And, I've seen it, on all different sides and scales, but sometimes you'll get advice from advisors, from family, from friends to do it a certain way because that's in their best interest. Like, hey, if you don't put it in the trust, it's liquid. We can tell you what to do with it afterwards. Hey, if you don't buy that annuity and you just have that cash in the bank account, then I can help you invest it in a real estate because I'm a realtor. you know you always have to kind of, what's your motivation, where are you coming from on this? But the trust allows some protection in the fact that now it's your motivation. These are my rules, this is my structure, this is how you're going to play if you want to, play my game.
I love that. And kind of switching gears a little bit, because you have a whole slew of things that you do. I really want to also talk about, like, we have the trust over here, but now I want to dive a little bit more into the contract aspect of business owners, because there's still going to be people that are gonna sit and, some are going to jump in and be like, yep, I'm going to get my trust, I'm going to get everything going. And then you're going to get the people that are like you said, when, right? So if you're one of those, it's when, and then you're like, well, it's just not resonating with me over here quite yet. What I want to talk about is the thing that all business owners can resonate with right now, and that is contracts. Kind of talk a little bit about your contract business and what you do with business owners on the contract end of things.
Okay. So just to tie those together, the folks that I work with most are business owners. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I think I have 9 active LLCs right now. One of them being the law office, and that's my main gig. But I have other things. I write, I speak, I have the farm here that we do things on. And when it comes to contracts, I hear this a lot, that an attorney will say, I'll write an ironclad contract that will guarantee you winning in court. And you know what? That's fantastic. I like to write a contract that will hopefully guarantee you won't have to go to court, because most people think, oh, contracts, boilerplate, legalism, blah, blah, blah. And, that's true. It's all there. But your contract is really one of your first impressions of your business. So, number one, it's got to represent your business. And two, you got to direct the conversation of how you're going to do business with each other. This is the time when you're all excited. We're going to do business together. Yay. Let's write it down while we're happy and make sure that we have specific rules and procedures on how to go through and maintain happy. And so, we're going to manage expectations, and we're going to discuss how payment's going to happen or not happen. And we're going to discuss, what fulfillment looks like and what fulfillment doesn't look like. And those parts of the contract seem like, yeah, it's just common sense, but that's the first thing that gets missed. Like when we're drafting a contract for a client, and they do they have a service that they provide, but they also do some education. So let's put that in the contract. Box A is service provide, with some blank spaces. Box B is if you want to take a class on this, you know that might not even be part of the conversation or what the person's come for business, but now they see there's a box B. You just upsold them without even saying a thing because you drafted your contract correctly.
It's crazy. And by the way, I do see the comments, so we'll get back to the questions a little bit at the end. But what I was telling him beforehand is a contract is a thing that kind of destroyed my last business, right? I was very adamant too. I kept saying, we need a new contract, we need a new contract, we need a new contract. And it was just like, oh, it's all right. It's not important yet. It's not important yet. Right. And we have so many like handshakes and so many like, but they're my friends, because especially a lot of you in here, you're collaborating with other people. You're working with people, right? And your friends. And I think what happens is we put a lot of trust in word, and until money is in hand or money is exchanged, then all of a sudden everything changes, right? And so I had bought into a business, and the legal contract just wasn't there. It was, a handwritten contract that when I finally had a lawyer look at it, they're like, yeah, there's no promise on your end. There's no promise on their end. You're not even a shareholder. Like, I practically had bought into a business that wasn't even a legal business, right? And it was a big deal. And it got to the point that my lawyer was like, at this point, give all the money back and walk away, because you don't even want to touch this, because it's a big deal. And so I think that that's another thing where people are like, I will when my business gets to this point. I will when my business gets to that point. And I don't know if you would agree, but I actually think the most vulnerable are probably startup business owners that are forking around money, and they don't realize how serious that is without contracts, right?
Yeah, and I think in the entrepreneurial space specifically, we're all thrifty, and we want to use our money wisely, and do it ourselves, because that's the spirit that engenders what we're doing. But then we trip over dollars to pick up pennies, and we don't invest in ourselves. We don't invest in forming our LLC or incorporation correctly. We go on Facebook and say, how do I do this? And everyone says, oh, it's for free on just go on the state website. And that makes me cry and die a little bit inside. Because even the state website has this huge disclaimer: please talk to an attorney before you do any of this stuff, because we're not giving everything you need. But that's just little small words that they have there. Pay no attention to the words there. And then we don't invest in that contract. We don't invest in the system, whether it's a legal system or some kind of system, and put it into your business to make it run smoother. All the wise words of Michael Gerber, to be working on your business and not in your business. That can't happen without the systems in place.
Yeah, and I think if I could go back, and I think most business owners could go back, one of the biggest things I hear is, I wish I would have built my foundation first, right? Because now it's like I take all this money to then go and be like, well, now I need a contract for this and a contract for this and a contract for this, versus if I would have just seeded it along the way, it actually would have been cheaper, versus now I'm paying thousands and thousands for contracts of every aspect of my business, every employee, every contractor, every client, every waiver for every event, like all of these different things. And so it's like, if I could recommend anything to you guys, I think contracts are the number one thing, and talking to an attorney in general about business, because once again, you don't know what you don't know, right? And there's so many other aspects Michael can help you with. And if you don't know, just sit down and have the conversation, and be okay to be a mess, to be like, here's all of my stuff. I'm sure half of it's illegal right now, but please help me, right? Because I think people have a fear to have attorneys dabbling into their stuff out of like, what if everything's a hot mess? And I will tell you, most entrepreneurs' things are a hot mess, correct?
Yeah, and you got to be open too. I mean, this is your baby, and so you're very guarded, you're very protective about it. But, I had someone reach out the other day and they wanted a non-compete. I'm like, great, I can write that for you. But let me ask you the next question. Why do you need it? Well, I'm tired of all these people leaving my firm and undercutting me. I said, okay, I'm going to write you this. You're going to pay it and you're going to call me in a year and or maybe you won't even call me, but you're going to be upset with me in a year. And this is the reason why. You have a culture problem. You have something going on in your business that is sending people away, and then they're using, their trained profession to compete with you. Let's focus on that. Let's have the contract in place to, continue that expectation, but let's make sure that it's going to, do the best thing for you. And I'm not going to teach you that. I'm going to send you to a business coach or someone that can help you with that. But you know what I mean? It's just
Yep.
sometimes people don't want to hear what they need to hear. And then they, go out and give you a 1-star Google review.
Right, exactly. I love it. Okay, well, we're flying through time right now, but before we get to where people can follow you and stuff, well, there is, let me, a couple questions. So how do you do it when you don't, oh, you kind of answered this, but how do you do it when you don't have lots of cash?
So you start with a conversation with someone like me, an attorney, and you build it out to, what's most important, and then go from there. And like you said, we when we get to that point where it's like, oh, I have to do all these things. I love the analogy that when they built Rome, they built the sewer system first, because there weren't any people then. But when they come, when the stuff happens, it's really good for someone to have somewhere for it to go. Um, that infrastructure is so critical, because the number one death to business is no sales. The number two death to business is killing your motivation or your momentum, because you have to stop, you have to create this, you have to create that. You want to be able to grow into it. And so we'll have that conversation. Maybe it's the formation of your business, maybe it's a simple contract. And from a simple contract, we can grow and develop that into one or two or three or four, instead of creating 5 distinct and separate contracts later. So it does save, that fix it mentality in law is always more expensive than the preventative. Let's set you up right the first time. And sometimes you won't hear that from attorneys, because they know they make more money in the fix it category.
Yep, for sure. And on the mindset answer of that, I would say you probably do have the money. And it probably isn't as expensive as you think it is. It's just actually making something maybe you don't understand a priority right now to start that conversation, like you said, because we all have the money, right? If you knew that this amount of money was going to save you $1 million 5 years down the road, you would find the money. So I don't actually think it's a money issue. I think it's an understanding issue and a value issue of how much do I value this, this piece of paper that can save me down the road when I'm in a mess.
And absolutely, you have the conversation, and then you can figure things out. And I'm a firm believer, if you're driving down the road with that burning question, get it answered. Don't make a decision and then figure it out later. And so I don't charge for those texts and phone calls. I want you to get the the answer, and then we'll build out a project if you need it around it.
Exactly. I love that. I love that. How often should you update your trust, and what is that process?
So I'd say every 1 to 3 years, and there's 3 reasons for updating a trust. Law change. We just went through a presidential change, so there's going to be some differences coming down the pike that we need to be aware of. Preference change. I like this person, I don't anymore. And then life changes. We moved away. The guardians that we really loved were in Southern California, but now we're in Utah, so that doesn't make too much sense. So any kind of those big changes, definitely it's time to come in. Otherwise, every 1 to 3 years, just depending on how active your portfolio is.
I love that. Like I said, I'm definitely going to be meeting with you to just go over what I have, to know what I have, and because I'm sure that there's so much. I probably am one of those that it's blank, right? I have it, the expensive piece of book, but it's probably blank because that's something you're not told, right? Like you get, here's kind of how you fill it out, but then you look at it and I'm like, I don't understand this now, so I'll do it later. And so there's always different stages. So I love that you help people through the process. So thank you so much. This has been so valuable. Kind of tell people where they can find you. I know you have different things going on and stuff like that, but what's the best way to get a hold of you? Where can they follow you? And kind of talk a little bit about what everything in a gist of what you could offer them.
Okay, so best way to reach me is the website, www.legallifeplan.com. That you can connect with a Zoom or a phone call, or see the services that I provide. On the website, you will only see estate planning services. There are secret pages for business, for LLC, for things like that, and that's simply because it's a marketing issue. One message. So estate planning is the message you'll see on the website, but we can talk about all that other stuff when we connect. I have the Facebook page, Vehicle to Wealth, um, that you can jump on. I'm constantly making what I call the Lawyer Minute every Tuesday. Those are on YouTube as well, except I don't have enough followers to have a cool YouTube channel name yet. It's still XYZ17, whatever. Uh, so Facebook is probably the best way to find those videos and connect with me. Always available through the personal message. I just ask that if you text or personal message, keep it, just know that other people are reading those, right? So just be safe with that, and then we'll find more secure means to have deeper conversations.
I love that. I told people that all the time. I'm like, you probably should have wrote that in Messenger. My whole entire team is seeing that. So I love that. What I would say is what we'll do is we'll get you actually added into this Facebook group if you're not already added. And maybe we'll tag you if there's some questions that pop up as people watch the replay. We'll also get your information in the comments. And I would highly suggest meeting with him. And his videos rock, you guys. He's an amazing speaker. There's so much more to him that you don't even know, right? We had to really narrow down what are we going to talk about. His story is amazing that you can hear here, and he has a million other stories that he talks about in other videos. And so please go follow him. He's really amazing. And get your trust, and if anything, get your LLC set up correctly, and at least a contract in place. Start somewhere, start planting that legal seed, and you'll start to grow from there, and at least know what your next steps are and what you're growing into. So thank you so much, Michael. It was so
Thank you.
great to have you, and we will talk to you all later.